Silver Ladders by Thalia Carrion. Star Episode 2, The Child of Two Eyes. The bundle in Alara's arms shifted again, its softness pressing into the crook of her elbow with a warmth so delicate she felt it through the thick wool of her traveling cloak. A sigh, small, fluttering, like the soft exhale of a dream being born, escaped from within the rosy blanket. It was, quite truly, the first breath the ancient estate had ever heard from its newest and most fragile inhabitant. Above her, the grand chandelier of Whitcomb Hall glowed like a suspended constellation, its crystals trembling with whisper-soft chimes. Alara paused beneath its glassy starlight, letting the moment settle into the bones of the house. Then, with hands steadier than she felt, she drew back the blanket's edge. The baby girl blinked up at her. Her hair was thick for a newborn, dark, silky, already curling slightly at the ends. Under the chandelier's glow, a subtle lavender sheen shimmered over each strand, as though moonlight traced every curve. Her skin was smooth, warm, impossibly soft, the fresh pink of dawn-touched clouds. But her eyes drew the breath from Alara's lungs. One was warm brown, deep and gentle, rich as caramel melting over a hearthstone. It held the quiet promise of comfort, the kind of gaze that soothed storms and softened harsh truths. The other was green, bright, sharp, shimmering like spring leaves brushed with morning dew. It glittered with life, curiosity, and something ancient, something awake. The estate felt the difference, too. A draft swept through the hall like a whispered O, stirring the velvet curtains and sending a rustle through the tapestries. Even the portraits, which often pretended indifference, straightened in their frames. Their painted eyes widened, attentive, almost reverent. Alara breathed, her voice barely above a whisper. "There you are, little one." She hesitated, for naming a child, especially this child, felt like placing a stone in the river of fate, and then spoke the name she had chosen. Astro. The house repeated it in its own language. A soft creaking of floorboards, the brush of curtains against their rods, the chiming of crystal droplets on the chandelier. The name echoed gently, lovingly. Astra. The baby blinked again, her mismatched eyes catching the silver-blue glow of the twin moons streaming through the high windows. The light seemed to split within her gaze, scattering across the marble floor in tiny reflections, constellations dancing around her like a whispered welcome. Alara felt a sting behind her eyes. Awe, fear, relief, grief. They tangled inside her chest like threads in a loom. "Welcome," she whispered again, "to this world that has been waiting for you." But outside the iron gate that bordered Whitcomb Hall, trouble had already begun its slow approach. As twilight thickened over Briarhollow village, a hush rolled through the crooked streets. The slate sky pressed low as though listening. Rumors slithered beneath doors, slipped through shutter cracks, and tangled themselves around lampposts. Women halted mid-fold over their laundry, turning to whisper to one another with damp cloths still in hand. Fishermen at the creek's edge slowly wound up their nets, muttering under their breath. A pair of old dogs, usually too lazy to argue with shadows, lifted their heads and barked at the empty alleyways, each one unsettled by a new, fragile magic humming in the world. Some villagers said the baby had been stolen. Others said she had been cursed, born under a moon omen. And some, the ones who whispered softer, trembling, believed she was a sign. A star-born herald wrapped in pink blankets. A sign of what? No one agreed. But all agreed on one thing. The magistrate had heard. And the magistrate's curiosity was a thing to fear. His questions seldom came without cruelty. His arrival seldom passed without something being taken. Freedom, property, truth, or hope. Yet before he could send a man to Alara's door, or before any villager found courage enough to make the journey up Whitcomb Hill, something else reached the estate first. It began with wind. A sudden gust swept along the cobbled path outside, tearing a swirl of fallen petals from the half-wild rose bushes. Leaves danced in spirals up the boundary wall, brushing the iron gate in a whirlwind of motion. And then the gate, tall, ancient, forged by Alara's great-grandfather, swung open. Not harshly, not violently, It opened as though bowing. A figure stepped through the entrance. He moved with coiled grace, each footfall as deliberate as the last, leaving no prints in the soft earth. His armor glimmered beneath a rune-stitched cloak, each sigil faintly glowing with pulse-like light. The staff in his hand, carved from stormwood harvested from a dead thundercloud, crackled faintly with restrained lightning. Vas Nightwell, Wizard Knight, Oathkeeper of the Broken Star. Trusted by none, feared by many except Alara Whitcomb. He entered the estate without knocking. The house recognized him, bowing the air around him as if offering passage. The chandeliers dimmed in welcome, their crystals chiming a polite greeting. Alara, he called, his voice low, roughened from travel and old magic. I felt her arrival. The child's power woke half the wardstones between here and the coast. Alara didn't look up. She was smoothing a dark curl at Astra's temple, the baby's breath warming her wrist. She is only a baby, Vas. She is never only anything, he murmured. He approached slowly as one approaches a holy flame. When his eyes met Astra's, those mismatched, moon-capturing eyes, something shifted in his expression. Awe, yes, but beneath it, a flicker of fear, recognition. A seer's gaze, he breathed, and a warrior's gaze, both in one. Astra reached out with tiny fingers, brushing the engraved runes of his gauntlet. The runes lit, golden and soft, like candlelight fed by stardust. Vas inhaled sharply. She already senses the old magics. Alara rose to her full height, then all the more reason to protect her. From the town, Vas asked. From the magistrate, Alara corrected. From anyone who fears what they don't understand. She paused. And from whatever chased me through the forest. The air grew taut. Even the estate's beams gave a nervous groan, a shudder deep within the walls. Vas held his breath. What chased you? Alara pulled Astra close, the blanket rustling like a soft exhale. A shadow, she whispered. A shadow with no owner, a thing that knew her name before I ever spoke it. The silence that followed was thick and cold. Astra cooed, a tiny sound, sweet and ancient, and the moonlight caught her eyes once more. In Briarhillow, far down the hill, a warning bell tolled. Slow, uneasy, trembling. The estate braced itself. Vas lowered his staff, the runes pulsing brighter. Alara, if the world seeks this child already, then we stand together. I swore my oath to protect the starborn. Alara whispered, and she is the brightest one yet. Astra yawned, her tiny mouth opening in an adorably wide O, completely unaware that destinies were reshaping themselves around her like constellations, sliding into new patterns. Welcome to this world, Vas murmured, bowing his head. Astra of the Two Eyes. And somewhere beyond the hills, in a place where shadows do not sleep, something ancient lifted its head and answered her arrival.